Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be considering if you should get a grapple for your tractor, or should you get forks, or should you rig something else like I have, which is basically tree forks or log, specifically for lifting trees. Okay, so I got here a Kubota L3901. So if you look over here on the front end, what I did is I welded a carryall that's intended to go on the 3-point in the back onto a quick attach plate. Okay, so I got this off of Amazon. It was $120, and then I had bought the carryall many years ago for like $150. I think it's now up to maybe $250 or something, but it's still a lot cheaper than getting forks or a grapple. And what I did is I welded it on here. So I got the 5/8 metal. You can see the thickness over here. So yeah, it was $120, so it was still cheap. So what I did is I welded it here. I used a Lincoln welder. Okay, I did it on both sides, on the in and on the outside. Oh yeah, you get a good view on this side. Here you go, you got better light on here. So yeah, they aren't the greatest welds, but hey, it works. You see, I did it both sides, in and out, right? And you can tell by the burn marks that I got good penetration on my welds. And then what I did is I got a square tubing that I put on the inside of the L bar to reinforce it, right? And again, same thing. I welded this top side and bottom side. All right, so I welded it here and here. Okay, and then what I did is because this square tubing was longer than it needed to be, so I cut it here, and I took the excess and I welded it here for reinforcement. Okay, so I welded it there, welded it there. Okay, and what I also did is I also welded it here. Right, on this side here, you can see how I welded it here. It basically gave it a little bit more reinforcement. So I've posted a number of videos where I'm working with the with trees that have fallen, that I've cut up. So the question now becomes like, because a lot of people would just use like forks that they have. Other people will use a grapple, okay? Or do you want to do something like this? So I have forks, like pallet forks. The reason why I don't want to use my pallet forks is a lot of times when I'm like trying to, like, let's say a tree falls over or something, or I cut it, and basically you have to dig into the ground a little bit to get underneath the tree, and that's very rough on your forks, which are really expensive. Okay, so I don't want to break my forks. Well, with this thing, if I break this or crack this, I just I can just weld another L bar on this or another tubing, or so this is a lot easier to fix than if I damage my forks. Okay, now the other thing is with this, I can put downward pressure, right? Because the forks that I have, they're the type that slide back and forth. They kind of like rest on there. So if I try to put any downward pressure, they're going to kind of lift up a little bit. Well, this is like fixed in this position, so I can actually manipulate logs back and forth with this. Okay, now actually when I welded this, if you notice, I welded this a little bit lower here, so I can also use this corner right here to basically manipulate logs. So I think this is something that I can be a lot more rough with than I will be with my pallet forks, which are pretty expensive. I think there was something like $2,000 or something, or $1,800. I don't remember exactly how much, but the pallet forks are expensive. So I don't want to damage my forks by trying to get underneath a tree and hitting rocks and stuff like that. I'd rather use this over here. Okay, now how about a grapple, getting a dedicated grapple? Well, grapples are very expensive. You also have to run extra hydraulic lines, but the other thing with the grapple is the grapple will typically add about 300 pounds. Grapples typically weigh about 300 pounds, so that takes away from your lift capacity. Okay, so if the typical lift capacity of these compact tractors is about 1,000 pounds. So if you got a 300-pound grapple, at the end over here, well, your payload is 700 pounds. Okay, with this thing weighs less than 100 pounds, so I get pretty close to the full 1,000 pounds of payload up front over here. Okay, so I get more lift capacity. I get like the full 1,000 pounds. So that's a big benefit to using a setup like this versus buying an expensive grapple. Now the other thing that a lot of times happens with the grapples is because you use the hydraulics to clamp down on the trees. A lot of times, I mean, it's very easy to get lazy and not balance the trees. Okay, so because you got the benefit of the grapple that's holding it in place, well, what that does is a lot of times it just throws your tractor off balance, and it increases the chance that you're going to flip it over. Okay, so because the logs that I put on here, they don't get locked down, I have to make sure, like, it forces me to make sure that the logs are balanced over here. Okay, because if they're not balanced, they're just going to fall off on either side. So that forces me to balance the logs, which decreases the chance that I'm going to flip the tractor. And believe you, I mean, a lot of times especially if you're busy, if you're moving a lot of logs, I mean, there's plenty of times where, like, I got the log on there, I know it's kind of off balance, but it's like, oh, can I get away with it? Can I move it can I move it 50 feet before it falls over? So so the natural thing is to try and cheat it as much as you can. So with this, if I'm off balance, the worst thing is going to happen is the log's just going to fall off over the side. With the grapple, I'm going to lock it in place. I'm not just going to be cheating it a little bit, I'm going to end up cheating it a lot. Okay, so especially if you're working on rough ground, uneven ground in the woods, that's going to increase the chance of flipping the tractor over. So for me, this probably is this is probably like idiot proof for me. Okay, now if you look on the back here, so the tires are filled. They got fluid in there. So the tires weigh like 300 pounds each with the fluid. So that the 600 pounds of tires offsets the weight of the front end loader, which is like 800 pounds. And then I have 1,000 pounds of counterweight in the back to offset the weight of the load in the front, which is typically, like I said, I've put I think almost the full capacity, the full 1,000 pounds. Based on the fact that I could only lift the loader up so high. If you can lift it all the way up high, if you can only come up about halfway up, you're probably you're well past your, the recommended lift capacity of your front end loader. So I've completely maxed out my lift capacity when I've gone to the max when moving logs. Okay, so that's something for you guys to consider. Setting up, getting one of these cheap carryalls, welding it onto one of the, for like whatever, $150 to $200, welding it onto one of these plates that you can get for about $120. That might be a good option for a lot of you guys versus taking a chance with ruining your pallet forks in the woods or getting an expensive grapple. Okay, so let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you all soon.